Hi, I'm Danielle. Welcome to my perfume journal. So, today is the day I am going to be talking about my weirdo perfumes. So, many of you know that I have been a perfume enthusiast for many, many years. And during that time, I have smelled my share of really weird stuff. And for the most part, I like to smell nice. I like perfumes that make me smell good. But on the perfume enthusiasm and appreciation side, I also love to smell perfumes that are like weird, conceptual, and sometimes even bad. Perfumes that make you go, wow, they really did that. They really made that. And even though I might never wear them, I can appreciate perfumes like that for what they are, which is a form of art, olfactory art. First up is the perfume that I talked about in a recent video that actually inspired this video, and that is L'Oreille de Bois from Jacques Fath. At the heart of it, this is really a woody floral with mimosa and sandalwood as the main hero notes. But what makes this perfume a bit of a weirdo for me is the addition of cumin, cinnamon, honey, saffron, and then some broom and orange blossom. So what you end up with is this kind of like pleasantly sour result. And it sort of smells to me like the water in a vase of flowers that's been sitting around for about a week. Now, I like that smell, that sort of like pungent green floral water, but it is weird and it is not necessarily something that everyone might want to smell like. So to me, L'Oreille de Bois is weird, but also wearable, the kind of perfume that reminds me of like those cusp days between winter and spring, and I think it's perfect to wear at that time of year. So next we have two perfumes from the brand Giacomo. The first is one of my favorite vintage bitter green Chypres. It's called Silences, and that in itself would be considered a bit of a weird scent nowadays because it is like the polar opposite of everything that's being released. This is a lot like Robert Piguet's Bandit. It came out in 1978 when those like mossy, galbanum-laden vegetal perfumes were a lot more common. So by today's standards, Silences is a weirdo outlier, but one that I absolutely love. And then behind Silences is Aura, which came out in 2000, and it smells a lot like the color of the circle on the bottle. It's almost like fluorescent smelling. It borders on sour like L'Oreille de Bois, but it's more floral and less spicy woody than that perfume. And in Aura, you get some of the same notes. You have mimosa, broom, and sandalwood, but where L'Oreille de Bois is moodier, Aura is brighter and a bit more cheerful with some fruity notes on top, and then some like puffy heliotrope in the base. I get a little bit of that weird vase water in this perfume as well, which I do gravitate toward and find really enjoyable. And I would say that this perfume is like second cousins, twice removed to Tendre Poison from Dior, which was created by the same perfumer, Edouard Flechier. I see some similarities here, and I love Tendre Poison as well. So next is This Is Her from Zadig and Voltaire. This perfume was much, much hyped when it came out in 2016. And even for like quite a while after that, it was kind of like novel at the time with that chestnut cream note combined with pink pepper, jasmine, and silk and cashmere. And the way everyone on social media was describing this, I was so sure that I would love it. I love the smell of chestnuts and the taste of chestnut cream. So I thought this would be like delightfully creamy and nutty, but not too sweet. And instead, what I got from this perfume was pure baby vomit. Like a sour, spit up kind of a smell on my skin. And that to me is what makes this a very weird perfume. It's like that combination of pink pepper, jasmine, and chestnut cream just come together to create something really weird and unpleasant on my skin. And that brings me to the next perfume, which is Intimate Silhouette from Christian Siriano. I bought this perfume when I was on a sesame kick. I was like totally obsessed with finding perfumes that had a sesame note for a while, and I thought, ooh, this one sounds incredible. It had notes of benzoin, tonka, vanilla, sandalwood. But then, just like in This Is Her, this perfume came off very like baby vomit on my skin, like soured milk. And again, I think it's that jasmine and pepper combination that contributes to that the most. I really struggle with pink pepper on my skin, especially when it's combined with sweeter notes like vanilla. And that's what gives it like that weird quality to me. And then on top of the baby vomit, this perfume has that aroma chemical in it that Cass often talks about on her channel, the one that you find in a lot of perfumes nowadays. I'm not sure if it's like Ambrofix or an overdose of ambroxan or an amberwood or a combination of both, but it comes off like the smell of burning rubber, or as Cass describes it so perfectly, like a poisonous tarry nightmare. I smell this in so many perfumes. I'm sure it's some kind of fixative material that is meant to give an ambery, woody quality to a perfume. So while This Is Her doesn't have that tarry smell to it, Intimate Silhouette definitely does to me. And in combination with that baby vom on my skin, Intimate Silhouette is unfortunately not a wearable weirdo for me, but the bottle is gorgeous. I love the bottle. So next is Mud from Born to Stand Out. So before I talk about why this perfume is weird, I do have to say that I won this perfume in the most amazing giveaway I have ever won on social media. Not only did they send me this bottle, they also sent me samples of every single perfume that was in their collection at the time. They've had a ton more releases since then. And then they sent me a bunch of other cool goodies like body care items and posters and a tote bag. It was the most generous giveaway I have ever won, and it was beautifully presented. And I was so excited to be able to smell through their entire line. So it was kind of a bummer that Mud turned out to be a little too weird even for me. So based on the notes, I was expecting a creamy, but maybe like dusty chocolate rose. This is almond, milk, chocolate, Turkish rose, plum, vanilla, sandalwood, amber, and elemi resin. Amazing notes, right? And it was created by Natalie Lorson, whose work I usually love. But I think this perfume is a great example of how notes don't always tell the whole story of what you will actually be smelling. Because this really does smell a little bit like mud. Not like wet mud, but like clean, sweet, dried mud. Not like dirty in any way, but just dry. I don't get a lot of the chocolate or the almond or the plum. I literally just get dry, clean, sweet mud. And that's just a weird thing to smell like. But an amazing thing to smell like is Covet from Sarah Jessica Parker. This is one of those perfumes that has a huge list of notes that should not work at all, but they do. It's dark chocolate, lavender, lemon, pelargonium leaf, which I actually had to look up because I was like, what is that and what does it smell like? What I read said that it's a leaf that can take on the scent of like either rose, mint, lemon, or chocolate. So I was sort of thinking that it might be a little bit like, you know, when you go to the nursery and they have different varieties of basil, like lemon basil and mint basil, and they sort of take on the essence of that scent. That's kind of what I'm imagining this particular leaf must be like. There must be like varietals of it that have these different essences to them. Then in the mid, we have honeysuckle, lily of the valley, and magnolia, and then cashmere wood, musk, vetiver, teakwood, and amber in the base. But what does it smell like when you put it all together? So to me, this smells like a modern day witch who lives in a hut in the forest, and she reads tarot cards and makes artisan chocolates. That's exactly what this perfume conjures for me. That's the image that it evokes. Really, what I mostly get is the dark chocolate, the lavender, the lemon. You definitely get the floral C in the mid and the woodiness in the base, but it's really the combination of dark chocolate, lavender, and lemon that stand out and make this such an interesting combination and a very wearable, weird perfume. So this is Gloam from Aēsop, And I love this perfume so much. This is weirdly, weirdly wonderful. I first heard about this perfume from Jeff and Jane on Fragrophilia, one of my all-time favorite perfume podcasts. If you don't listen, you absolutely should, because Jeff and Jane are phenomenal. Jane was talking about Gloam quite a bit a while back, and I impulse bought this perfume on vacation one year, and I'm so glad that I did. So Gloam is weird because it's green and spicy, but it's also fluffy and powdery at the same time. The notes are cardamom, orange blossom, pink pepper, mimosa, saffron, jasmine sambac, iris, copaiba balsam, and patchouli. And what you really get from this perfume to me is like a sense of tension between something soft and fluffy and something stemmy and spicy. And I always talk about this as the slumber party of perfume. It, for some reason, reminds me of when you were younger and you'd go to a slumber party and everyone would be trying so hard to stay awake, and you would be literally prying your eyes open with your fingers because you were so tired and you were fighting off that sleep. And it's that sense of tension between wanting to sleep and wanting to stay awake that this perfume sort of reminds me of. And I know that's a really weird analogy, but it was the first thing that popped into my head when I smelled this perfume. And so that's why Gloam is one of my favorite wonderful weirdos. So this gorgeous little bottle is Secret Obsession from Calvin Klein. And what I was expecting based on the notes was like poison and obsession had a baby kind of a scent. The notes are plum, mace, rose, jasmine, tuberose, and orange blossom, and then sandalwood, amber, cashmere wood, and vanilla in the base. And so instead of a poison obsession baby, what I get from this perfume is like you filled a bathtub with soapy bubbles and you poured in a gallon of Coca-Cola. It's a very odd combination, and I think it's the white florals that give that soapiness and then all of the other notes that give you that sort of like youth dew Coca-Cola kind of a vibe. And so when you put them together, you get the weirdness that is Secret Obsession. So I have some of my weird samples that I've kept for reference. The first one I'll talk about is Vio-Volta from DS and Durga. So DS and Durga in general is a brand that does create some really unusual kind of scents. So if you're interested in unusual scents, DS and Durga is a good place to start. So this is a really cool, weird scent. This perfume smells like violets whose petals are buzzing with television static. Like if you lifted them to your nose to sniff them, you'd get a shock. That's it. That's the whole description. That's exactly what this perfume smells like. It smells like violet petals with television static. And it doesn't even matter what the notes are, because this is just such an interesting and amazing weird perfume. Like the fact that it actually smells like static electricity is wild to me. And it is so successfully weird and wearable at the same time. And then in the same vein is a perfume called Striking from a brand called Rich Mess. But this perfume was created by Christophe Laudamiel, who is totally known for his out-of-the-box conceptual perfumery style. So this perfume tells a whole story of a summer block party when the skies open up suddenly, the rain pours down onto the streets, and then there's like a huge crack of lightning a few feet away. The perfume has notes of watermelon, petrichor, electrostatic, and metal. And it is one of the weirdest things I have ever smelled in the best and most fascinating way. And even though this is not a perfume that I would wear necessarily, I am so glad that it exists and I have a little bit of it to study. So next we have Jungle Jezebel from Sarah Baker. A lot of Sarah Baker's perfumes really push the boundaries with animalics. Sarah Baker is an excellent example of an independent brand that develops these really interesting olfactory concepts and places them in the hands of great perfumers. In this case, it was created by Miguel Matos. So this perfume smells like poopy bananas. The civet note in this is so prominent. You really have to get along with animalics to get along with this. And then the banana note is very, very Laffy Taffy, bordering on like bubblegum banana, which makes sense because there is tuberose and ylang ylang in this. So it has that very tropical vibe, which is apt for the name. And this perfume is weird and campy and completely unwearable to me, but I am so glad to have a sample of it. It is fascinating. And then sticking with the theme of unwearable animalics, the entire line of perfumes by Marlou are some of the weirdest perfumes I have ever smelled. I used to have samples of them, but I gave them away to another perfume enthusiast friend of mine who was interested in smelling them. And I do remember that there was a brief time when Marlou's Poudre Extase was a huge hit. To me, that perfume smells like an unclean person who has just doused themselves in talcum powder to kind of like mask the very human odors emanating from their body. Then we have their perfume Ambulux, which smells like salty pea. We have Carnicure, which smells like a barnyard. And then Corpelium, which smells like all three of the previous scents combined into one. Again, these perfumes are too weird for me, but I am so glad that I smelled them, as I was fascinated by the idea of that which smells so bad that it actually smells good. And I think that that has really been achieved by this brand. And I can see how these perfumes are so base and so carnal that people might actually want to smell like them and enjoy smelling like them. I am personally not one of those people, but if you are, I say good on ya and spray to your heart's content. You will have no judgment from me. So now let's talk about a perfume with weird notes that I think smells absolutely amazing, and I am considering a bottle of. I had 2 samples of this perfume and I drained both of them because I loved this perfume so much. It is Annabel's Birthday Cake from Marissa Zappas. And this perfume fits into the weird category because it smells like a whole birthday party. Like, I don't know how a perfumer manages to do that. That is a weird thing to say. Like, this perfume smells like a birthday party, but it does, and it smells incredible. It is a chocolate, lemon, sugar Barbie cake, complete with plastic doll head scent. It is latex balloons and roses and fluffy florals and honeycomb. And it is one of the most interesting gourmands that I have ever smelled. It smells of pure happiness and joy and innocence. And it is, to me, the perfect intersection of weird and wonderful. Okay, next is a perfume from the wonderful house Oriza Legrand, and it is Chypre Mousse. And I'm just going to start by reading the note list. It's clary sage, corn mint, wild fennel, green shoots, oak moss, angelica, clover, mastic, galbanum, fern, violet leaf, oak moss, labdanum, balsam, humus, pine needles, mushrooms, vetiver, roasted chestnut, and leather. So that right there should give you an idea of why this is on my weirdo perfume list. And if you love really green, almost soapy chypres, this sort of does have like a little bit of soapiness to it, but it is extremely green and extremely mossy. This would definitely be a perfume for you. But what makes this extra weird is, you know, when you put something through a juicer and you have that sort of like airy, foamy leftover stuff? This perfume has that kind of a texture. Maybe that's why it's called Chypre Mousse. It's like you took all of these ingredients, including a big handful of soil from the forest floor, and put them into a juicer, and then you took that foam and distilled it and put it into a perfume bottle. It is definitely a weird scent, but it also smells really amazing. I'm not sure that it's something that I would wear, but this is the kind of perfume I would really like to smell on another person. Okay, next, let me tell you a story about some samples. So most of my perfume loving life has been in the designer world, and that's mostly because I'm a Gen Xer, and that's what we had in the 70s and 80s. But then when I found Perfume Tube, I started branching out and sampling lots and lots of independent and niche perfumes. So back in like the early to mid 2010s, I remember watching a video about Zoologist Perfumes, and I thought, wow, this brand sounds really interesting. I would love to see what this is all about. So I bought a sample set of what was their entire line at the time. It arrived, and I started sniffing through them. And I remember very clearly thinking, what in the world is this? I specifically remember smelling bat and rhinoceros and elephant and wondering what would ever possess someone to want to smell like any of this poop and dirt and mud. And it was my first introduction to really conceptual perfumery. Definitely my first introduction to oud and to heavy, heavy, leathery notes. And at the time, it was just all too weird for me. So I took the entire sample set of the Zoologist perfumes in their original formulations and I threw them in the trash. I threw them in the trash. That was such a mistake because even though I am certain I would still find them weird and unwearable, I wish I could sniff. I wish I could sniff through that sample set again with now another 10 years of sampling countless perfumes and a much, much more curious nose. I wonder what I would think about them now, what notes I might be able to pull out, what images the perfumes might conjure, or stories they might tell me. I wish I had had a more open mind back then. And now Zoologist makes many, many more wearable scents than they did at the time. Nightingale is a perfume in my own collection, and it's a favorite of mine. But I would really love to be able to smell those weird ones again in their original formulations. And the last two perfumes I'm going to talk about are two of the weirdest perfumes I've ever smelled in all of my years of smelling perfumes. One is weird, but not as absolutely awful as people make it out to be. And the other is weird and worse than I could have imagined. And so if you are easily grossed out or offended, you might want to stop this video right now. So the first perfume I'm going to talk about is Sécretions Magnifiques from État Libre d'Orange, created by the wonderful, the genius Antoine Lee. So this perfume was definitely meant to create a stir, and indeed it did. It was hyped up as the most human of perfumes, made to smell like every human secretion that you can imagine that I don't need to name one by one for you. And does it smell like all of those secretions? Yes, it absolutely does. It successfully accomplishes the brief. Is it gag worthy and nauseating? No, not really. It isn't. It's not pleasant, but it's not foul either. It is just plainly weird. It is a little bit sweet, a little bit salty, a little bit metallic. It's a little sweaty. It's a little breathy. Would I wear this? No, I would not. Would I want to be close to someone wearing this? Also, no. Am I glad that I've had the chance to smell it? Yes, absolutely. Is it one of the weirdest perfumes I've smelled to date? Also, yes. Okay, finally, the perfume that is by far the weirdest and the most horrible thing I have ever smelled is Sombre from Stranger's Perfumery. So this perfume was inspired by a horror movie that I've never seen and I never plan to see. I don't like horror movies unless they're like funny and campy kind of horror movies. I first came across this perfume when I was on vacation in London at Bloom Perfumery. And I can assure you that this was a perfume that did not come home with Vacation Danielle. This perfume was placed in the shop under a glass cloche with a warning sign and a clear note not to spray it into the air. And so much like the Alice in Wonderland drink me moment, that was a moment for me as a perfume enthusiast. No matter how bad it was, I had to sniff it. I had to sniff it. Do I regret my decision? No, but also yes. So the notes. Okay, brace yourself. The notes are a vomit accord, mold accord, nocturnal animals accord, pus, mud, sweat, champagne, orris butter, jasmine, tuberose, and rose. Okay, this perfume is more than weird. It is disgusting. It is putrid and foul. And if it was meaning to make anyone who smelled it feel instantly shocked and nauseated and uncomfortable and sick, it succeeds at that times a million. It smells exactly like the notes. Mostly it smells like vomit, but you can definitely pick up all of the other revolting and repulsive aspects of it, the mold, the pus, the sweat, the mud. It's really kind of amazing that something so utterly realistic could be created out of aroma chemicals. Like when you think about it, that truly is a work of olfactory art. But even so, my conclusion about this perfume is no. Just no. No matter how much I love weird perfumes, even I have my limits, and Sombre is definitely beyond my limits. So there we have it, an array of weirdo perfumes. And really, this video only scratches the surface. There are so many other weird perfumes out there, some of which I've smelled, some I haven't yet. But I do think weird scents are fun to smell just for the sake of smelling them. So if you have any weirdo perfume recommendations, please share them with me in the comments. I'd love for us to share the weirdo perfume love with each other and see what's out there that we can smell and talk about. And to everyone who loves a good weirdo perfume, including myself, I say good for us. Perfume is subjective, and everyone should just wear what they enjoy. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make. I appreciate you spending your time with me, and thanks for chatting perfumes with me in the comments. I hope you have a really great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.